Welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Here we are on Tuesday the 26th of January, almost another month gone, 2016, and I've had a nightmare day. Absolute nightmare. I don't want to bore you with my life, but quite frankly, 6:30 this morning I was changing the wheel on the Jeep after the valve blew out completely. Boing, psst, flat, nightmare. And all the rest of it. So that was a great start to the day, and then we found out we're having the gales and the rain is absolutely horrendous out there at the moment, which for all you guys in the US are aware that lovely white snow and probably a pain really for you. Here we've got the other end of it, so now it's absolutely hammering it down and blowing a gale in the wind and rain out there. And the felt on the shed, that we've got the 12 by 15 shed out the back. The felt ripped off in the wind, so everything inside of it is nicely getting wet and everything else like that. So needless to say, been rather busy running around doing things today and not getting much time down here. That said, last night, actually, if you want to put this on one of them days, one of the members now informs me that the tracks for the Terminator are back to front. Which you're quite right, and I'm glad you said, because there's nothing worse than, you know, everyone sniggering behind your back saying, but I'm all wrong, and all the rest of it. But needless to say, we've had to redo the track system for this is the one, probably because I haven't got the overhead running for this one, but generally I thought the pads were on the outside. For some reason I'm thinking Abrams, Challengers, tanks like that, and they have the pads, the big bricky ones on the outside. No, this is Russian. And obviously, as we know, the only time they have pads on is for going around on parades and stuff like that. Generally, day to day, they don't have the pads on. So I actually built them round the wrong way. So in the thing of like, oh God, yes, you're quite right, and all the rest of it, I then tried to take it apart. Now, as we know, when you've watched the video on this one, if you watched yesterday's video, it shows it, and you have a system, and you build them in fives and everything else. Well, obviously, as soon as you have to take it apart, that goes out the window. And the thing is, the plastic between the pads and the things like that is so thin, when you try and get it apart, it snaps. So we've done a bit of a cheat on this one, to be honest. So what we have, a situation of, instead of doing the entire lot, all I've done is I've left the middle section, because that's going to be at the top and it's going to be hidden underneath armor plates and everything else like this, okay, around it, so no one's going to see it. So what we've done is the bits that show, and between breakages and not having to do it, I think we've cured the problem. But at the time I was thinking we're going to have to go down aftermarket and everything else like that, but actually I think we can. Well, this doesn't link up. Try to get this to link up. I don't want to. We go. Don't want to push it, but I think we can get around the problem now, because there we go. That shows it as being all nicely the external. So the top one up here, you won't see it. So we've dodged the bullet, because I didn't fancy doing a frill set. Not that I think you can do it for this, because that was the other thing. I thought this was just like a T90 with a turret on it. No, the track system seems to be different. Definitely different, because I must admit, I've got the T90 kit over there. I got it out and immediately thought, that's okay, I'll pinch one off the T90 and do it. And it's a different type of track. So needless to say, don't take any notice of part 3, because I've got to re-edit it with this now, and I'll put an apology into the edit and everything else, which I intended to do today, but with everything we've been running around and sorting everything out, I haven't had a chance to do it. That said, I have done the sanding and basically part 2 here on the MiG, which is still wet, that's why it's hanging there at the moment, and we talk about sanding, something as simple, and it's like 15 minutes on sanding, and I know a lot of you are going to be, God, you know, 15 minutes on sanding, I know how to do it. But the whole point of this is I'm going over some real basics that obviously we've got a lot of new members. In fact, we've got a hell of a lot of new members who seem to be either coming back to the hobby or perhaps getting interested in it from other things, okay? Which is what I'll get onto in a moment. But generally, some of the questions I'm getting are really what seem to be basic questions. And I think the trouble is that, from my point of view especially, and perhaps you guys as well, when you've been modelling years, it's like, it seems so simple. Well, actually, no, it's not. Okay, though it is quite complex, like sanders and sanding, which I know this is like a shameless plug and all the rest of it. But I had a couple of people over the weekend ask me about the sanders, like, what's the difference between the blue one, the blue spongy one, the polishy one, and the black one, and things like that. How do you use them and when do you use them? So that's why I did the sanding thing again on this one, purely to show exactly when and how I use them. Okay, and I think it's a good point, because sometimes you can overlook the basics, okay, and sometimes you've got in such a sort of, you know, a rut with your building and all the rest of it, that a slight tweak on how you do things could improve something, and something perhaps you never thought of, and things like that. So that's basically what I'm up to at the moment. I've sat down for literally, over a coffee this afternoon and worked out where I think we've got some gaps on the site that need to be looked at. Some of the stuff that I think is a little bit old and could do with a bit of a revamp. And stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sort of thing of like back to basics. Okay, so I'm going to go back to basics as we did on this one on sanding. Now the tutorial section in the site, have you seen it? It's quite extensive. It goes on. There must be, I don't know, 20 or 30 videos up there on bits and pieces. Okay, but because they are now over the last sort of, some of it's the old format, the SD stuff, some of it's in HD, some of it's the low quality HD, some of it was done last week, other stuff was done 10 years ago. It's a little bit all over the place, and some of the tools and techniques and everything else like that, like everything in the hobby, evolves over time. Some things I've tried and it doesn't really work, and I go back to doing other things. Other things is now my primary way of doing it, which wasn't like it 5 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to redo it completely. So this is where I need your feedback as well. Okay, where do you want to see detailed areas? So we're talking 15-minute video on sanding. Okay, which I know, when I say it to myself, it's like 15 minutes. I've watched it a few times, funny enough, because I'm in it and I've edited it, and it all makes sense. Okay, and some of it I'm hoping will make sense to you guys. And it's not just sanding, it's like, why do your gaps come back? Why do you get sink marks? And I cover all of those in it, okay? And the various bits and pieces. So obviously that will be up on the site. And what I'm going to do for you is give you a little bit of a clip of that today, so you can see about that in a minute, okay? But generally, this is what I want to do. I want to cover in depth certain things. So I'm thinking, obviously, sanding, filling, because let's face it, that's what I was looking at. We've got various things on filling and doing stuff, but I've got new ways of doing it now. Some of it's old school, some of it's very modern, okay, and various things in between. So, I think we can cover another 15-minute just on filling. So we've got sanding, filling, and then obviously rescribing. Again, the scribing videos are fantastic, and we've got some great ones in there, but some of them are really old, and it's when we first started shooting in HD. The camera angles are a little bit wonky. I think I can get in there better and show it better. So I'd like to redo that one. And then obviously detail work. So we're thinking about just doing a video on a aftermarket cockpit. Okay, perhaps in 1/32 and something in 1/48, a resin one perhaps, using photo etch as well as just painting the resin cockpit up, things like that. I'm thinking wheel wells, I'm thinking engines, and I'm not just thinking aircraft engines, I'm thinking car engines and tank engines and everything other type of engine, and a little bit on scratch building as well, because I think, again, it's very disjointed on the actual site. There's no sort of, ABC, there's no like go through my cabinet and show you exactly what I've got on various things. Yeah, it was covered a hell of a lot, because don't forget, most of it was scratch built on the Typhoon when we did the big Airfix Hawker Typhoon. But on a smaller scale, how would you go about doing a bay? Something simple as that we could do a nice 15-minute video on. So if you would like to see a short video on something redone, okay, don't be frightened to chirp up and say, look, that one's showing its age now and can't really see what's going on, could you do it again? Let me know. So if you're thinking ones on like, polishing canopies, I think we've got a good one on there, but if you think it needs redoing, and various other items that you would think would work well in a series of videos. So you start at the top, and we could talk about, obviously, as we've done, sanding, filling, rescribing, and then just work your way down through things. Obviously, I'm from an aircraft background, so that's what I'm thinking. So don't suddenly ask me to do water effects for ships, because I can't do that. I'm pretty hopeless at all things like that. I'm not very good at dioramas, okay? So I'm very much a believer in know your limits. I'm not going to tell you how to do something when I'm not very good at it myself, okay? But if I do know how to do it, and I think I can show it, and I think I can, show it in a way that you all understand and things like that, then obviously I will do it. But I need your input to see what you would like to see. The point to this is that doing some of the builds, although I love doing them and they're great and all the rest of it, we're covering the same thing with almost every single build now, because I have my set way of doing stuff, and although I like to show you something completely different in every build, I'm now overlapping. Okay, so some things we'll use oils and we won't use washes. Other times we'll use washes and won't use anything else. Sometimes we do a lot of aftermarket stuff, other times we'll scratch build. Sometimes we'll do photo etch. And it's all very thing. So I try and bring you something different with every other video. The trouble I'm finding is a lot of you guys don't watch a lot of the videos because it doesn't interest you. So something perhaps on the Sherman, The aircraft guys don't watch it. You see something on the aircraft things, but everything does tend to overlap on the actual site. But I'm trying to do a staple thing from start to finish of the, if you wanted to know about sanding, you can just go in the videos, click, there it is, watch it, get an understanding for it. So when we come to doing full build ones, instead of me having to show how to detail a wheel well, I can say we've done the wheelway just the same way as we did it in the tutorial video and link to it. Unless it's specific and we were doing some changes. But generally things like priming, base coating, you know, attaching it, various things will be covered in the tutorial bit and things like it. Okay, so that is the real thing for it, you know. That way I can build a lot quicker because I don't have to film everything. I can just literally head down, go for it without having to do it. Obviously I'll still film it because if I get problems, if I get in a situation where it doesn't fit, if I get in a problem where it goes wrong, obviously I'll show you the same way as I show everything else we do. So I won't be sort of, you know, cutting away and it's like, you know, 1, 2, miss a few, 99, and here's your finish item at the end. It'll still be a full video build, but I won't have to recap over the same thing time and time again and various things like that. So that is the plan for it. So there we go, that's about it. So what I'm going to do now is show you a clip about sanding. The full thing of this, which is about 20 minutes, will be on the site, and obviously the more in-depth version again will be up with you tomorrow with part 2 of the MIG, because obviously it's going to cover all of this and putting it together and all the bits and pieces like that. So there we go, as you said, quite a busy day for me, quite a lot of running around sorting it and everything else. I've still got to do a little bit more work to the track and everything else, but hopefully whilst this is all drying in one nice lump tomorrow, I can get on and get some primer, maybe even the first coat of paint actually onto the Terminator as well. So that's it from me, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Okay, so the fuselage has been drying overnight. One of the things we talk about, obviously, seam lines and stuff like that. Sometimes you can hide them in weathering, shall we say, and camo pattern, stuff like that. Because we're going to go with the sort of, you know, the natural metal finish look, that we need it to be as perfect as possibly we can make it. So that basically means no seam lines. So a couple of things. I thought we'd do a little bit of a recap on something so basic as seam lines. I always like to use skinny sanders. Now this isn't just deployed to flog them, it's collateral damage, i.e. if you come in with big sanding sticks, you know, something like this, and you're going along, you're just going to rip through all the detail, which technically you don't need to do, all right? So what I tend to do is use the more skinnies. Obviously you've got your medium, your fine, everything else. We haven't got mass lines down here, so what we're going to do is going to do the fine one. So actually what we've got, as you can see here, we've already done it at the front, we're working our way back, but you might notice you can see in the coloration of this where the step is going to be, all right? So what I tend to do is around about sort of 45 degrees to it, and I'm not pushing down. Let the sander do the physical work, okay? So we're just going to make a pass across, okay? And immediately we can see where we've got the problem, because now we've sanded it lightly, you can see that the shiny bit is obviously a depression, all right? So we can work our way across, okay? So still keeping 45 degrees, and not pushing down, okay? The idea is the sander does the work. We can then decide on if we think we can get away with just sanding through the problem, like we do here. You can see it's disappearing. It's getting fainter and fainter as we go, okay? And obviously we're not doing mass areas. Now, if we were coming in with something like this, you wouldn't actually be able to see how far you need to go. But with this guy, okay, we can just go a little at a time, and we can see exactly what it is until, as we can see there, it disappears. Okay, so we've got a little bit just down on this edge, okay, and we've sanded it off, okay, and we haven't made a massive flat spot because we've just taken off the top edge. Now we can come in with softer items. So to be honest, we've got a normal sort of skinny stick down here. This is the sponge, okay, and because it's a sponge, it will curve and wrap around the surface. But again, don't push, let the actual sponge do all the work, okay? So don't actually push down on it and curving it, just lay it on the surface and it will naturally curve round, okay? And there we go, that's that one in. Just do this back area, okay? So I've got no problems with any of this, and we've still got all the details running around. Because we haven't carved through them, we can still see where they are. So when we need to come back in and obviously take care of those, put them back in, things like that, we can see where they are. Next up, we can actually use something with a little bit more polish to it. So this is the sander polisher, all right? So we can use this, and because we've got it down to an area we like now, we can then just go through normally. So what we're going to do is wet the surface. This will just help the polisher do its bit, okay? And we're just going to use circular motions, okay, and a bit of line work, And this is still going to sand in. It's going to cut in. This is like wet and dry paper. And as you can see now, we've gone through, giving us pretty much back to plastic. Now, if we wanted to carry on, if you wet the polisher, okay, you can probably hear it and see it. Okay, this will release the compound, which will polish this guy back up. Okay, so no problem at all. Then we flip to the white side and we go over, and this will polish the plastic to a better finish than it was originally. Okay, and there we go. You can probably see the shine in the plastic now that we never had before, and we're completely seamless. We can see now, or hopefully you can see, we just got a little bit of work we just need to do, but we haven't destroyed the panel lines doing this. Okay, it's not taking it out and it's caused flat spots. It's still nicely curved, but hopefully you can see. I don't know which camera obviously will look better on this one. If we drop this top one down as well, hopefully you can see down here, if we catch it in the light, we haven't caused much damage at all. You can still see up here just a fraction in the middle is missing, okay, and down the back. All right, and that is how good we can get it. Okay, just going in there like that, so it's not really a problem doing it. All right, but you might get areas like we got down here which are a lot worse. Now, to be honest, this isn't a problem, and you don't really need to sand it even, because you're going to have the ventral fin down here which is going to put a stop on it. But to show you, we can actually do it. So what we've got here is a couple of the Alex scrapers, which work really well on this type of thing. Now, obviously, if you came in here, it's not really going to work because these are all probably far too much. Okay, that one will probably go, but you could use a square edge as well. But we've got this guy just down here. So what we're going to do is very lightly, just going to run this up and down the area. Okay, and what this does is takes out the area, but make sure it's wider than the surface, because what you don't want to do is come in and make lines down each side. Okay, so what we do, we're just going to go back and forth, and we take out the height. Okay, until it starts to go in. Okay, so we've taken out a lot of that height on this step. You can probably see just back here now. And then we can come in, because we've taken out most of the height, we can just come in and repeat. So these are sort of self-cleaning. So what you can do, you have it like that, and then I knock it on my trousers and it comes off. We do both sides, you can see just like that. All right, and that's the beauty about self-cleaning files, and that's what they do. Okay, but because we've taken out a lot of this height now, it's very small height difference. That means it will sand really easy. And again, don't push, just let the sand do the work. And I think that's where most people get a little bit carried away. They end up pushing them down on the sander. Okay, so you can see a couple of little shiny spots still down there, just a little bit. All right, so what we do, we'll just give that a clean, as you see. All right, then we're just going to come along. Okay, and again, we're just going to do it till they disappear. Okay, so that's those shiny spots gone then, and we're going to repeat. So again, we're just going to come in with a sponge. This one's got a little bit more bite. Okay, let's take those out. Okay, and then we can come in with a polisher. Gonna wet it. Okay, just like that. And we're coming in with a polisher. Okay, by wetting it, it will release the compound, which will polish. Okay, and then you can then go white side and buff. And what you're trying to do is make sure you take out all the scratches, so you're left with a mirror finish, just like that. Okay, so again, we've got nothing down in there.